First Latin American Pope and the first from outside Europe since the 8th century. Pope Francis has been revealed to Catholics on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica last night.
This is a huge moment, Seema, tonight in the Catholic calendar, and yet the Pope.
Pope Francis is topping the charts after making quite a shocking revelation that has left millions of faithful followers speechless.
An ideology is not an idea. No, it is something worse. And anti-Semitism is an ideology, and it is bad.
The magnificent Notre Dame Cathedral has been rebuilt, rising like a phoenix from its ashes after a devastating fire. However, the world's most beloved pope, known for blessing tiny chapels in remote villages and praying in war-torn countries, was not in attendance. What could be so important that it kept the people's pope away from this momentous celebration? And why did he say he would not go to Paris? Join us as we find out everything Pope Francis said. The Notre Dame bombshell. High above the clouds aboard the papal plane, Pope Francis did something unexpected. He spoke openly about a decision that left Catholics around the world buzzing with questions. The Pope, known for his kind smile and gentle words, surprised everyone with a serious tone. "I will not go to Paris. I will not go to Paris," he said firmly. His voice was steady, yet it carried a weight that made the reporters on board sit up and take notice. For a moment, silence filled the cabin, as if the words themselves had stopped time. The topic was the much-anticipated reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral, a moment that many believed would unite the Church and its followers. Yet here was the Pope, the leader of millions, refusing to attend. His words lingered like the scent of burning candles in a quiet chapel, leaving everyone wondering, why? For 5 long years, the heart of Paris held its breath. Notre Dame, scarred by the raging fire of 2019, had been slowly brought back to life by the hands of skilled craftsmen. They worked on every detail. The graceful angels carved into stone, the colorful stained glass windows that told stories, and the ancient walls that had stood for centuries. The world waited eagerly, expecting to see Pope Francis himself bless the cathedral during its first Mass since the disaster. But when the big day came, the Pope's chair stood empty. The Vatican's simple explanation of other commitments only added to the mystery. French Catholics who had imagined the moment of his blessing as a triumph of hope and faith felt their hearts sink. Social media buzzed with wild guesses and heated debates. Some wondered if there was a deeper meaning behind his absence. Others turned to the Pope's past words and choices, searching for hints. For many, the missing figure of Pope Francis in Notre Dame's grand reopening left a hole as vast as the cathedral's once collapsed roof. When the questions finally came, Pope Francis answered as deeply as it was puzzling. He explained that his absence wasn't a slight against Notre Dame, but a message about what truly matters. "The strength of the Church," he said, "is not in grand buildings, but in its people and their faith." His words were simple, yet they carried the weight of centuries of belief. Still, his tone hinted at something unsaid. Whispers floated through the Vatican halls, suggesting deeper reasons. Some spoke of quiet struggles between traditionalists and reformers within the Church. Others noted the Pope's habit of choosing humble chapels and celebrating Mass in places like slums, rather than in grand cathedrals. For many in France, the Pope's absence felt like a wound. Notre Dame wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of faith, art, and history, reborn from the ashes of tragedy. Its reopening was meant to be a joyous celebration of unity. Instead, the empty papal throne turned it into a mystery, leaving confusion and hurt in its wake. As theories swirled like incense in a quiet church, one thing was certain. Pope Francis had added another layer to his remarkable and unpredictable papacy. Whether this moment will reveal more truths remains to be seen. But the Catholic world waits, knowing that with Francis, there's always more beneath the surface. The world buzzed with questions when Pope Francis didn't show up at Notre Dame. Why would the leader of the Catholic Church miss such an important moment? The answer might lie in the bold way he has led since the day he stepped onto the Vatican balcony in 2013. Leadership style that shook the Church. On his very first night as Pope, Francis surprised everyone. Instead of climbing into the sleek papal limousine waiting for him, he joined the cardinals on the bus. He chatted, laughed, and rode along as if he were just another passenger. It was a small act, but it sent a big message. This Pope was going to be different. Francis had already broken centuries-old traditions. He was the first Pope from the Americas, the first Jesuit leader of the Church, and the first to take the name Francis, honoring the saint who gave up everything to help the poor. But his boldest decision came when he turned down the grand papal apartments. "A pope needs to live among people," he explained, choosing a modest room in the Vatican guest house instead. There he eats in the common dining hall, makes his bed, and even answers his door. These simple, everyday actions left Vatican staff stunned. Some raised their eyebrows, unused to a pope who blended humility with such ease. Every morning, Pope Francis starts his day with quiet prayers and a simple breakfast in the bustling common dining room. Unlike past popes who dined alone on fine china, he grabs a tray, fills it himself, and takes a seat wherever there's room. Guests often stare in surprise as the Pope casually chats with them, making them feel like old friends. His way of leading is just as down to earth. Gone is the grand golden throne, replaced by a plain white chair. He swapped the traditional red leather shoes for simple black ones. When someone asked about the change, he grinned and said, "Have you seen the price of shoes? That money could feed a family for months." Francis has brought big changes to the Vatican. For the first time, the Vatican Bank underwent an external audit, shining a light on its finances. He also created a council of cardinals from around the world, making sure voices from every corner of the church were heard. His security team had to adjust too, as he regularly stepped off script to hug the sick, greet the elderly, and hold children in the crowd. One of his boldest moves came when he opened Vatican financial records for public review. "The church belongs to everyone," he told astonished officials, "so its books should be open to everyone too." He didn't just talk about change, he acted, firing powerful officials accused of corruption and proving he meant business. Francis's approach stirred up heated debates. Many admired his courage and kindness, while others worried he was shaking things up too quickly. But he stayed steady, often saying, "The church should be like a field hospital after battle, healing wounds and warming hearts." Even with all the challenges, he kept his sense of humor. During a formal speech, a little boy climbed onto his chair. Instead of scolding him, Francis smiled and carried on, later joking, "That kid knows how to take charge. He's got leadership written all over him, from bouncer to pope." Before he became Pope Francis, the man who would transform the Catholic Church, Jorge Mario Bergoglio lived a life full of unexpected twists and turns. His journey from a bouncer at a nightclub to the leader of millions is a story that feels almost too extraordinary to be true. In the lively streets of Buenos Aires, young Jorge didn't wear priestly robes but a white lab coat. He had earned a diploma as a chemistry technician and spent his days in a bustling laboratory, testing food samples. But when the sun set, he swapped the lab coat for a bouncer's jacket. His tall frame and calm demeanor kept order at a local nightclub, where his presence alone often stopped trouble before it began. Jorge didn't stop there. To help his family, he worked odd jobs. One day, he'd be sweeping floors as a janitor. The next, delivering newspapers in the early morning. His friends remember him as an ordinary young man who loved soccer, dancing the tango, and catching movies with his girlfriend. But life had a different plan for Jorge. At 21, he was struck by severe pneumonia. The illness was so serious that doctors had to remove 3 cysts and part of his right lung. Stuck in a hospital bed and staring down his mortality, Jorge found himself grappling with life's deeper questions. Everything changed on a spring day. On his way to celebrate with friends, he walked past the San Jose de Flores church. Something tugged at him, urging him to step inside. What began as a routine confession turned into a profound conversation with the priest. Jorge left that church feeling like he'd been grabbed by the collar by God himself. That moment marked the beginning of a new chapter. The bouncer who once kept people out of clubs now felt called to bring them into the church. In 1958, he left his lab coat and nightclub job behind to become a Jesuit novice. His sharp mind, once focused on chemistry, now explored theology and philosophy. But Jorge didn't forget his past. His time managing unruly nightclub crowds prepared him to handle church politics with grace. His scientific background taught him to tackle problems with careful thought. Even though his work as a janitor left its mark, he still insists on cleaning his own living space to this day. These experiences shaped the man who would become Pope Francis, a leader who understands both the struggles of the streets and the mysteries of faith. As he often says, God works in mysterious ways. And sometimes those ways include a stop at a Buenos Aires nightclub, the People's Pope. In the tough neighborhoods of Buenos Aires, long before he became Pope Francis, a simple man earned the nickname the Slum Bishop. Known for his big heart, he doubled the number of priests working in the city's poorest areas. It was clear that titles didn't matter to him. His mission was all about the people. That same spirit now fills St. Peter's Square. Francis often stops his vehicle to hug disabled children, share a kind word with the homeless, or even wash the feet of prisoners. His gestures break traditions. He's washed the feet of women and Muslims, acts once unthinkable for a pope. His security team struggles to keep up as he dives into crowds, always looking for the forgotten and overlooked. The surprises don't stop there. At the Vatican, he skips formal banquets to eat with cafeteria workers. On World Day of the Poor, he didn't deliver a long speech. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves and served lunch to over 1,300 people in need. The meal, simple pasta, fresh bread, and vegetables are exactly what he eats every day. But Pope Francis isn't just about gestures. He takes real action. When devastating earthquakes hit Turkey and Syria, he sent medical teams, supplies, and relief workers through the Rava Foundation. In Ukraine, his compassion translated into $6 million in aid for food, medicine, and therapy for those affected by war. His bold leadership inspires others to follow. A church that doesn't get its hands dirty helping people isn't really a church, he says. Under his guidance, Catholic charities have grown to reach over 200 countries, sending doctors to underserved African hospitals and launching new medical programs. One of his proudest projects is a network of healthcare centers for children in poor regions. No child should be considered incurable, he declared as the program began. These centers not only treat illnesses but train local doctors and offer families long-term support. Even in the little things, Francis stays grounded. He carries his bags, makes his appointments, and often calls people directly to comfort them. Imagine picking up your phone and hearing, "Hello, this is Francis." Once, during a visit to a prison, he patiently stood in line for security checks, chatting casually with guards about their lives. Through it all, Pope Francis leads by example, showing that real leaders serve their people. To young priests, he gives this simple advice: we must have the smell of the sheep. It's his way of saying that leaders belong with their people, not above them. While Pope Francis's hands-on approach to helping people has transformed lives in local communities, his mission for peace stretches far beyond Vatican walls. But how does a pope who rides the bus manage to bring hope to some of the world's most dangerous places? Global Peacemaker's Journey. In July 2013, under a blazing sun, Pope Francis stood before a massive crowd of 3.5 million young people at Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro. The ocean waves roared behind him as he issued a bold challenge: "Don't be part-time Christians." His words cut through the tropical heat, setting the tone for a papacy defined by courage, compassion, and a willingness to step into the unknown. In Iraq, Francis ventured into war-torn streets, where bullet holes scarred buildings and memories of violence lingered. He prayed in churches rebuilt from rubble and blessed the local Christian communities. Many had thought they would never see a pope in their homeland. Even as his security team watched nervously, Francis paused to speak with former ISIS fighters who had chosen a path of peace, showing his belief in redemption and change. The 2024 Southeast Asia tour was another landmark. In Indonesia, Francis sat cross-legged with Buddhist monks, engaging in deep conversations about harmony and understanding. He signed peace agreements with Muslim leaders and celebrated Mass with throngs of believers in East Timor. In Papua New Guinea, tribal chiefs laid down their weapons in his presence, halting long-standing conflicts, if only temporarily, inspired by his words of reconciliation. Francis's mission wasn't confined to places of conflict. In Luxembourg, he addressed wealthy nations directly, urging them to share their wealth with struggling countries. His visit to Singapore became an unexpected youth summit, bringing teenagers from diverse religions together to discuss unity and plan community projects. Even unplanned moments revealed his character. When his car broke down in a tough neighborhood during a trip, Francis didn't wait for a replacement. He simply walked, turning the delay into an impromptu gathering with surprised residents. His humility shone in these moments, as he preferred connection over protocol. His travel style speaks volumes about his priorities. Carrying his worn black briefcase, he shuns luxury hotels and dines simply, often with his flight crew. Between grand cathedrals and formal state visits, he makes time for orphanages and refugee camps, where his presence brings comfort to the forgotten. Before becoming a global peacemaker who travels to war zones and dines with the poor, Pope Francis learned about courage and compassion in his own family. How? Family roots and church ranks. The warm smell of homemade pasta and the cheerful hum of Italian voices filled the small apartment in Buenos Aires where Jorge Mario Bergoglio grew up. Born on December 17, 1936. In the lively Flores neighborhood, young Jorge's early life was shaped by courage and sacrifice, lessons passed down from his family's remarkable journey. Jorge's father, Mario José Bergoglio, left Italy in 1929, carrying little more than hope. As Mussolini's grip tightened on their homeland, the Bergoglio family made a difficult choice: leave a comfortable life behind to seek freedom in a faraway land. In Argentina, Mario found work as an accountant, while Regina, Jorge's mother, kept their home filled with love and resilience. Their apartment became a hub for other Italian immigrants, a place where memories of the old country mingled with dreams of a better future. As the eldest of 5 children, Jorge grew up watching his parents rebuild their lives with faith and determination. Between soccer games in the streets and helping his mother in the kitchen, he absorbed lessons that would guide him forever: the strength of family, the value of sacrifice, and the power of community. His grandmother Rosa, a wise and steady influence, taught him how to pray in Italian and often shared stories about living with purpose. These lessons would carry Jorge far beyond Flores. When he joined the Society of Jesus in 1958, he brought with him his family's down-to-earth faith. Even during rigorous Jesuit training, he stood out for connecting complex theology to everyday life, drawing on simple but powerful examples from his childhood. Jorge's journey through the church wasn't easy. While studying in Chile, he battled a severe case of pneumonia that nearly cost him his life. Yet the illness only strengthened his resolve. After recovering, he delved deeper into his studies, excelling in philosophy and psychology while staying connected to ordinary people. By 1969, Jorge was ordained as Father Bergoglio. At 1973, at just 36 years old, he became the leader of Argentina's Jesuits during a dark period of military rule. While others chose confrontation, Jorge worked quietly but courageously, sheltering those in danger and arranging secret escapes. He turned the San Miguel Seminary into a haven, disguising activists as theology students and hiding them from prying eyes. Jorge's ability to balance wisdom and action didn't go unnoticed. In 1992, he was named Auxiliary Bishop of Buenos Aires. True to his roots, he rode public buses, visited the city's poorest neighborhoods, and kept his life simple. When he became Archbishop in 1998, he doubled down on his mission, sending priests into the shanty towns to serve communities other church leaders ignored. In 2001, Pope John Paul II elevated him to cardinal, but Jorge didn't change. He lived in a modest apartment, cooked his meals, and continued taking the bus. While others stayed in luxury hotels during visits to Rome, Jorge chose simple church guest houses. His humility puzzled some church officials, but endeared him to the people, setting the stage for a papacy that has constantly surprised the world. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, leave nice comments, and remember to subscribe for more interesting content. Check out another interesting video by clicking on the one appearing on your screen right now.